Hello. Hi, thanks for coming to my show. The Nomads exhibit at the Atlanta Photo Group. This show ran from May 12 to June 12. You have another week to come out and see my work. And first of all, I'd like to thank everybody that got me here. Beth, Chip, David, Bryan, the Council for the Arts in Atlanta, and with that, I'll start talking about my images here and a little bit about how I made these images, what was my motivation, what was the driving force, why people under bridges, which is the context of what I'm doing, is a group of individuals who are basically transients under the exchange here in Atlanta, the I-20 and the 75 corridor. There's a subculture uh, which I went down to photograph. This was in the year 2022 for a project I was trying to get off the ground. And more importantly, it was something that I was curious about while I was going to GSU. So I was bicycling back and forth from GSU past the photographs you're about to see, and the curiosity got the best of me because I was like, well, what are these people doing down there? Why are they down there? Why would I be interested in photographing um, a encampment here in the inner city of Atlanta, which is a pretty big city, a lot of people, a lot of moving parts, and these people are basically they're underneath the interstate. Um, and the only way you can see them actually is driving down the street and looking at your windows, the interstate. So a lot of truck traffic, a lot of noise, a lot of chaos. And I'll open with my first slide and we can go with that. This is the going to be the solo exhibit marquee. Gives you information on where we're at. And if you haven't come down here, Ansley Mall is north of Piedmont Park, Midtown, great place to visit, and the gallery is amazing. So go ahead next. So what are the nomads? By definition, they are people having no permanent adobe and who travel from place to place to find fresh pastures for their livestock. Uh, and in layman's terms, it's a person who doesn't stay long in the same place at the same time, just wandering. So these people I came across while I was down. My curiosity got the best of me, so I decided to go down and look for myself to see who these people were and what they were doing down there. This is the interstate from above I-20 corridor. There's a tent. The blue dot on the bottom is the tent people. What is interesting about this photograph is that there's some good symmetry going on here. There's a lot of motion involved, and if you look in the right-hand corner, there's a billboard of happy people, kind of a subtext there to what's really underneath the interstate. This is Ken's perch. I called it the eagle's nest because out of everything and everywhere I went, Kent decided to put his tent up on the top, uh, at the top of a slope, which is probably 20 feet up below the interstate. And I was kind of curious to, talk to the guy. Everybody I met, I talked to. So I went up to see Kent next. And um, the reason he was up so high was because in the evening, people like to drive by and throw things. So he said this is a perfect place to dodge bullets. Nice guy, met him, talked to me for a while. We exchanged information. Everybody I approached, I asked to photograph, and most people were willing. Uh, he was there 2 weekends out of the 3 months I went, and then he just disappeared. And this is probably an inspiration piece that, uh, for me, it's about the expression of the individual. So a lot of these photographs they have expression in them, and this is a classic example of somebody out uh, in the real world being photographed by a famous photographer. Go ahead. This is the bottom of the exchange where you see the rocks. The city has tons and tons of rocks down there for people not to live down underneath the interstates. But if you look closely, there's in the center is a blue tent halfway through the frame. This is another example of symmetry where I center punched the image and gets your focal point viewing the tent, even though it's in a way in the background, you see it eventually because of all the dynamic, the triangles. It's a triangle theory, and there's triangles throughout the image. These were the people putting clothes out. What's interesting about this is that they have no running water down there. There's no electricity, and it's basically barren except for the rocks and the tents. So I'm gonna guess somebody got rained on and they put these clothes out to air out their clothes, but at the same time, I'm not sure what was going on here. And in the foreground, you see another boulder. These boulders are hard to move. I don't know how it got there. Interesting enough. So I thought that would be a great shot. Next. This is Charlie. He was one of the individuals I talked to, and he basically, when I approach people, I ask them if they need anything or if I can photograph them, and was um, he wasn't really all there. So he was interested in smokes and water, and I didn't have either at the time. But after I asked him if I could photograph him, he said, he didn't really care what I did. And most of my subjects were willing to give me the time of the day. I think Charlie was probably thinking about something else besides being photographed. And I didn't never see him again after this one encounter. Here again, these are people that are under the interstate. I think this is the access road. So what I wanted to do was find out why these people were down there and why cars pass them day in and day out without even giving them the time of day. I understand it's, people are commuting and they probably don't see these people. And if you look at this image, they're wearing black masks over their faces because maybe they don't want to be seen. Uh, for whatever reason, better or worse, maybe they're down here because this is their last, refugee. This gentleman was one of my favorite photographs. He is separated by the fence. He's probably the closest I got to anybody down there. And at first, he felt threatened by my presence, told me not to photograph him. I asked him if it was okay if I just got a couple quick snaps. He was more concerned about his environment than me. And what makes this image work is not only the symmetry, but on his cheek, there's a tattoo of a teardrop. So, for better or worse, this is symbolic of something that you get in prison. I don't know if it's folklore or not, but a teardrop is significant to people who understand what it means. And this is the example of why I'm trying to get emotion and expression in my photographs. So if you look at this, I believe this is a photograph from the 30s. And the woman has an expression. She looks like she's having a good time having a smoke somewhere at a coffee shop. And then if you look back on my picture of the go back one, you're going to see an expression of maybe hope. There's some, you can read whatever you want into it, but these are the kind of things, the nuances you look for when you're trying to create photography that will stand out in the crowd. What makes my work different than others? Maybe it's the expressions, maybe it's the symmetry, it's the color balance, it could be a number of things. The examples I'm showing are why I went out there, and they do inspire me to try to create my own works. Here's the exchange again. I think this is a frontage road, but you'll see the rocks in the foreground. This basically follows the rule of thirds, where you take your image and you cut it into thirds, top, middle, and bottom. You balance it. And the symmetry is pretty much center punched. The red car, your eye will go to that red car no matter what you're looking at in the frame. There's a man on a, I think he's on a lawn chair just watching, I mean, doesn't have anything better to do, I suppose, so he just watches traffic. Next. This is going to be a image of somebody's, I don't want to say temporary housing because there's no tent, but at the same time, there's a bag with what appears to be a sleeping bag right on the exchange with trucks going by 50 feet behind this. So here again, what excites me about this is these people are putting up their temporary housing, their comfort zone, whatever it is that they want to call their own space in the middle of rocks and dirt, 50 feet from the interstate. And, I mean, for better or worse, this is something that, you got to understand uh, that these encampments, these sleeping bags were everywhere. Everywhere I looked, I could find somebody hiding out. This is the example of what I was explaining earlier about the theory of the center punch. Here, Da Vinci shows the Last Supper, and in the middle of the frame, you find the subject. Again, there's the rule of thirds working, but it is almost impossible not to look at the center of this frame and see the subject, which is a forced perspective. And if you can find this in your photography, I think you're going to be very happy with the results. This gentleman, I call plaid, the plaid man, and he was willing to let me take photographs. I encouraged the gentleman to just stand next to where he was staying. He was staying right at the edge of this concrete pillar, just in a sleeping bag. So that was basically, he was out of harm's way, up against the concrete pillar in the back hiding. When I found him, he was just out wandering around looking for, it was early morning, so he was probably just getting up, acclimating for the day. Here is a perfect example of what I would call an image where the expression pretty much sells it. This individual I approached, asked if she needed anything, and I carry water with me when I'm going down there. I usually carry water, cigarettes, and candy bars. She was really most interested in just water. And we chatted for a little while before I even pulled my camera out because she didn't look like she was very happy. I don't know anything more about her than her, the 15 minutes that I stayed there to photograph her. But in those 15 minutes, I captured an image that I think stands on its own. The expression here is what sells it. I didn't want to get any closer to get an informal portrait because here again, it's about the tents. It's about the environment. You have complementary colors working in this image, red, yellow, and blue, which bounce off of each other. And um, I just hope that this person is okay for the long, for what it's worth. And this is my inspiration for that image because this is probably Dorothea Lange, probably in the 30s. She made this photograph for Life magazine, and back in the day, that was all analog, so it had to go through a whole process before it was ever viewed. I use this as an example of, go back one, of how you can get an expression that might be timeless. Granted, the woman in Dorothea Lange's photograph is almost 100 years old. The two expressions are very similar, and there lies the challenge. If you can take photographs that are timeless, then somebody somewhere maybe will remember your image. Here is the photograph from the frontage road, and people basically are camping out next to the guardrails. There is a monument to somebody who's passed, and the gentleman that was there when I photographed this was more than willing to let me take pictures of the monument to a fallen, I think it was a relative. I didn't ask about how or why. It was just something that I believe this person set up to remember somebody in his life. And this is same guardrail, maybe 50 feet down, where uh, this individual had his shopping cart next to the guardrail. In case a car came crashing through the guardrail, it would hit his shopping cart first. That was what he told me. And um, this image is void of any real color. It's very muted and kind of like what's down there. There's nothing living down in beneath the interstates. It's all pretty much gray, dirty. What color that comes into play is the color that these individuals bring down with them. Another example of the center punch composition. Out of all the stuff that's in this image, what stands out most is the lime green rain cover for the tent. There's probably about 4 or 5 tents in this image. You kind of have to look for them. Built in the rocks and around the rocks. I don't know if the tree in the foreground helps with the composition. Um, I just like the fact that this awning made this one tent stand out among the other ones. This one I call Dog Walker, and for what it's worth, this woman makes $883 a month on disability. She has no place to stay. When I met her, she lived down in this nice tent. Um, and she had a dog with her I guess this was for safety as well as companionship. Out of everybody I met down here, nobody had animals, nobody had pets. It was just too dangerous. And she was hesitant at first when I asked about photographing her. I think she was a little embarrassed about being down here in this situation. What works for me in this image is the positive and negative space. You have a shadow line coming straight through the image, and there's a dog in the shadow. Uh, it pretty much splits the image in two diagonally, but there's quite a bit of information on both sides of the shadow line. This was a individual who didn't enjoy my presence. At the end of the day, I was told by countless people not to be down here after dark. It wasn't safe. He was in the shadows. He rushed me because he saw that I was down there taking pictures on my bicycle. And ironically, this photograph is soft, first of all, but he has some kind of like I think this was right after COVID, so he had a mask on for protection, which at the end of the day looks like uh, a Joker face. This was way before Joker came out, and I like this image because that's probably the only thing you see when you look at it without going into detail. There's some nice color shifts here. There's a warm light from the ambient light from street lights, and then the evening light, the blue light at sunset. So the whole area is warm. The fire is way blown out, but that doesn't bother me at all because I don't think I would have got the detail if I would have like gone for a fire and exposed for the fire and not the background. Another ghost image. I throw this one in here because it's when I first started exploring, I saw a lot of this. I saw a lot of like shadows moving, ghosts walking through, and nobody really had faces. They were just shapes and forms. And I thought, this is why I need to go down there and talk to these people because they're more than just a shape or a form. Cars are passing them on the frontage roads. They are part of the infrastructure of the city, and maybe they have a story to tell. Maybe not. Um, this one also is a very soft image, but I like it because it leaves a lot of questions, unanswered questions. So this is the one that I was pretty much most proud of, am most proud of. It's Michael. He is a Vietnam vet from San Diego. Uh, uh, there's not enough things I can say about this individual. His basically encampment, um, he had been here for quite a while. And I didn't ask him why he was in Atlanta, what his backstory was. We talked on a number of different occasions because he had a place that was almost semi-permanent. And he led me to other parts of the community where I didn't feel as threatened as I was when I was out on my own. In the immediate background, left of his head is the Gold Dome, Atlanta State Capitol, maybe half a mile walking distance. So this is where these people live. It's within distance of the capital of the state of Georgia. I eventually, after about a month of going down there, he moved on, and I never had a chance to say goodbye. To close, this is the aftermath of what appears to be a mattress that was burned up. I don't know if they burned it up for fire, for heat, for fun. It's the X factor. It's just the remains of an encampment, and the people who were there are now gone. So yeah, it's a sore sight. It's litter, it's unhealthy and probably unwanted. This is the aftermath of what happens when people go down to this part of the city. And I think I have a slide, a soundtrack that will tell you, give you information on what it sounds like down there. It should be the one that's after at the very end, just so that people can get an idea of really what it is all about. This is what happens. Okay, so that's what I'm doing nowadays, but go to to there. See if that'll play. Okay. So I did do a little soundtrack of what it sounds like down there. It might be on my phone. But regardless, we can go back to the last photograph of the man with no teeth. And this guy is one of the people I met. I gave him some cigarettes. He opened up to me. 90% of the people down there were pretty much harmless. Everybody has a story. And the whole thing about, being afraid of the unknown. I went down there. I felt uneasy until I started meeting people. And once you break down that barrier, I think a lot of these people have stories to tell and they probably don't mind being photographed because it's a latent image that's forever. Um, Once I broke down barriers of why I was there, they had no problem talking to me. As a matter of fact, they would talk your ear off because they are probably very lonely and don't have a lot of friends to communicate with. So to close on, I have a slide that has what I consider the one more, two more. This is what I consider what I do to create images. There are no rules. You just grab your camera, and my camera happens to be the camera choice is going to be my Fujifilm. It has a 16-80 zoom lens on it. Great camera. It's got a great color profile. I keep a polarizer on it pretty much religiously, and it's rugged. I wouldn't put it in water. It is water resistant. So this is part of what I carry with me. The other thing in my toolkit is a baggie. You need this to cover your camera when it starts raining. As for better or worse, you don't want to get caught in the rain. And some gray cards. I have 3 cards here, a white card, gray, and black. These are to color balance your camera before you get started. A lot of people put it on automatic and go with it, but in different lighting conditions, you might just need something like this as a visual reference. And once your camera is dialed in, then you can go from there. So then the other things that might come to play into play is you got to be real. I mean, you can't go down there and expect to get results if you're not honest with your work. For me, I had to find a theme. Why did I go down there? Well, I'm going to try to photograph these people in their home environment, and that opened doors for me. I just wasn't down there to take pictures of tents and people walking around. Uh, Use the language of photography. I mean, photography holds its own, and you have to understand what it is that people are looking for in photography. It's the content, it's the environment, it's the light, the color theory, harmony. Does it flow? Is there balance in the frame? And the symmetry. I mean, all these things come into play. And here again, everybody's a photographer if you have an iPhone or an Android. It's up to the individual. It's up to me to figure out how to make a photograph that lasts. And then if all else fails, what I do is just use examples from past masters. I mean, Chuck Close is quoted as saying, inspiration is for losers or something of that nature, paraphrase, but you need inspiration to get inspiration. There's photographs on the walls here. If I can pick up something that might lead me to take my own image of that in my own way, then that's inspired me. And I think what people have to understand in going into photography is what Ira Glass, NPR, once said. He says, the reason you get into anything is you have to taste it. Well, that goes for photography as well. You have to be real, you have to have fun. And I think in closing, I don't have any like words of wisdom. I'm still struggling to be a photographer. I can say that after this series, after I finished this series, I put it to bed. It was shot in 2022, and thankfully APG was willing to let me hang some of the images in their gallery. So even something that's, I don't know, I did when I was at GSU 4 years ago, it still has life of its own. Still see stuff that I would like to print and get out there in the real world. Now, what have I done since 2002? I graduated in 2004 with my bachelor's of studio arts, and I've gone from photographing homeless people um, in their environment to, okay, if you can go to those art pieces, doing three-dimensional art, and the one before that. This one made it into the Atlanta Art Fair, was chosen to be in the Atlanta Art Fair, so I'm pretty proud of this piece of work. My inspiration for this kind of stuff is Rob Rauschenberg, and I took photography and decided to use it as one of my mediums. So there's quite a bit of information here. I call this the voyeur, and there is something behind the frame of mylar that if you see through it, you'll understand there's some kind of female figure in the background. Um, Again, I went from photography, which I still do, to studio arts, and I'm currently pursuing my master's in fine arts. The last piece is going to be another one with the Mylar curtain. I believe this one is called Vertigo. Incorporating photography, there's a lot of information here. A lot of people are going to say, what is this and why did you do it? Because I could. And this one has gained traction. It's been shown a couple places. I'm pretty proud of this piece as well, but I hopefully will continue my photographic journey. It's something that I enjoy, and I enjoy sharing my images with fellow photographers as well as artists. Thank you for your time. Don't forget to tip your waiters and try the meatloaf. Wow.